Hi everybody, TJ Mack of Vintage Cards and Nostalgia here. Let me take you back, not just to a single year, but to an entire decade. A golden era of afros and astroturf, mustaches and muscle, tobacco-stained dugouts, and the crackle of transistor radios. The 1970s were a wild, unpredictable, beautiful mess of baseball. And the players, they were larger than life. So, what makes a season iconic? It's not just about stats, though the numbers do matter. It's about something more. The magazine covers, the headlines, the water cooler conversations, the televised moments burned into memory. It's about the seasons we're still talking about decades later. Now today I'm sharing my list of the 10 most iconic baseball seasons of the 1970s. No, this is not going to be some cold, objective ranking, and that's the whole point. This is personal. You see, for me, I'm drawn to the moments, the characters, the achievements, the players who captured us. I chose these seasons the same way I collect, with my gut, my heart, and a deep sense of meaning. Not every player here is in the Hall of Fame, but every one of these seasons, they were just unforgettable. Now there is one caveat. I did not choose any player twice. Every card you'll see is from my personal collection. Some of the magazines are too. And where I didn't have the original magazine, I added a few images found online to show just how much these players mattered in their moment. I paid attention to which players graced magazine covers during their big season or even the following spring. I looked at the newspaper buzz, and also I considered the legacy they left behind and how it's even talked about to this day. You'll find that this is more than just a list. It's a look back at the players and the seasons that defined a decade. Let's dive in. Number 10 is Willie Stargell, 1979. Let's talk about Pops and the family. Here he is on his 1979 Topps card. At 39 years old, Willie Stargell wasn't supposed to be the centerpiece anymore. The game had gotten younger, faster. The spotlight was shifting. But you see, Stargell didn't care about the script. He tore it up and rewrote it with charisma, leadership, and clutch hitting that made him impossible to ignore. He finished that season with a .281 batting average, 32 home runs, and 82 RBIs. Good numbers, but not the kind you'd expect from an MVP if numbers were all that mattered. But in 1979, they weren't. He shared the National League MVP that year with Cardinals first baseman Keith Hernandez. But in Pittsburgh, Willie stood alone. He was that team. That We Are Family Pirate squad felt touched by fate, and Stargell was its soul. His smile was as iconic as his swing. That summer, he wasn't just dominating on the field, he was everywhere. He appeared on the August 1979 Sporting News, as shown here. And it didn't stop there. As the year came to a close, he and Terry Bradshaw was named Sportsman of the Year, as you can see on this Sports Illustrated. Willie even graced the cover of the 1980 Sport Magazine Baseball Preview, proof of just how much his 1979 season echoed into the next. Sadly, that would be his last truly great season. He never played more than 74 games again before retiring in 1982. And the Pirates, they haven't won a World Series since. But for one unforgettable year, Pops carried a city, a clubhouse, and a legacy. And he did it with heart, power, and an unforgettable smile. Number 9 is Pete Rose, 1973. Here we have Pete on his 1973 Topps card, and make no mistake, this was him at his absolute peak. The head first slides, the helmet flying off, that unmistakable full throttle intensity. In 73, he batted .338 and collected a staggering 230 hits, the most he'd ever hit in a single season. He captured his third and final batting title, was named the league MVP and the All-Star Game MVP. He wasn't just playing the game, he was setting the standard. Pete was a walking, talking advertisement for hustle, grit, and relentless drive. Before controversy clouded his legacy, Pete Rose in 1973 was the embodiment of effort and determination, a player who would simply refuse to quit. Now let me show you a couple of my magazines. Here he is featured on the cover of Sport Today from 1973. This one's from my collection. And just a year later, in 1974, he appeared on Sports Illustrated on their baseball preview issue. This is one I'd like to add at some point. Now at this moment in time, Pete wasn't just a star, he was the player in baseball, the face of the Cincinnati Reds team that was on the verge of becoming truly legendary. Number 8 is Johnny Bench, 1970. Here he is on his 70 Topps card, and by the start of that season, Johnny Bench was already a rising star, but it was in 1970 that he catapulted himself into superstardom and set him firmly on the path to becoming, in my opinion, the greatest catcher of all time. At just 22 years old, Bench crushed a major league leading 45 home runs and drove in 145 RBIs. His home run total was a record for catchers at that time and one that stood unchallenged for over half a century. That same year, he became the youngest MVP in National League history. Like Berra and Campy before him, he made the catcher position one of great offense and defense as he won his third of 10 consecutive Gold Gloves. The Big Red Machine was still being assembled piece by piece, but Johnny Bench, he was already the engine. A Bench was talked about in baseball throughout 1970, and here he is on the cover of the Sporting News in October 70. Just a beautiful cover showing his catcher's mask. And then just a few months earlier, in July 1970, he graced the cover of Sports Illustrated in another beautiful photo. I'd love to have that one in a newsstand copy someday. It's such a piece of history. And for my own collection, here's a special one, the 71 Baseball Illustrated. It's proof that the impact he had from that incredible season in 70 carried over into 1971. Number 7 is Joe Morgan, 1976. Here he is on his 76 Topps card. Yes, that's the third Reds player in a row, but it just goes to show how dominant and influential that team truly was. Now, choosing between Joe's 1975 and 76 seasons, it wasn't really easy. Both earned him the National League MVP, but I went with 76 because that was the year he fully cemented his legacy as one of the game's all-time greatest second basemen. Now, coming off a World Series win in 75, the Reds came back even stronger in 76. They won 6 less games, but still won 102, but they ended up sweeping both the Phillies in the NLCS and the Yankees in the World Series. Just a dominant team. And Morgan, he did it all. He stole 60 bases, he hit a career-high 27 home runs, and for the only time in his career, he drove in over 100 runs, finishing with 111. But beyond the numbers, Joe Morgan in 1976 played with this quiet domination, a calm, unshakable confidence that seemed to say, "I've figured this game out." The Reds were a juggernaut, and Morgan, he was the smartest man on the field. Now here are two magazines from my personal collection. First, you have the August 1976 issue of Sport Magazine featuring Rose and Morgan right in the heart of that incredible season. And the next is this 1977 issue of Popular Sports, Baseball, with Morgan on the cover as one of the true faces of the game at that time. Number 6 is Steve Carlton, 1972. Now here's one of my latest pickups, the 1972 Topps Graded Steve Carlton. Now I already had his Cardinals card from the same year, but putting this video together finally gave me the push I needed to track down the traded version and add it to the collection. Carlton was simply unbelievable in 1972, and he absolutely deserves his place on this list. Growing up, I always heard whispers about this legendary season, and when you dig into it, the numbers, they almost sound made up. The Phillies were terrible that year, just winning 59 games, and Steve Carlton won 27 of them. That's nearly half of the team's total victories, all by one man. His ERA was a dominant 1.97. The strikeouts, 310. And he did it all while pitching for a team that finished dead last. If that's not iconic, I honestly don't know what is. A lefty was a machine, silent, stoic, and absolutely devastating on the mound. A season for the ages, tucked inside an otherwise forgettable year. And to show just how much that season resonated at the time, here are a couple magazines from that era. First, check out this 1972 issue of the Sporting News with the caption, "Mr. Invincible." And honestly, how true is that? It says it all. Then from the following year, here's a 1973 Sports Illustrated baseball preview. Carlton front and center with another fitting caption, "Philadelphia's Miracle Man." Now, I don't have that Sports Illustrated just yet, but it's definitely one I'd love to add to my collection someday. Number 5, Hank Aaron, 1974. In April of 1974, Hank Aaron did more than just hit a home run. He changed the game and the country forever. With one swing, he passed Babe Ruth and sent baseball's most iconic record, home run number 715, soaring into a new era. But that moment wasn't just about numbers, it was about courage. Aaron received thousands of letters, many filled with hate, even death threats, and still, he stood tall. Grace under pressure, dignity in the face of racism. He didn't just break a record, he broke through barriers that had stood for generations. Now here's my 1974 Topps Hank Aaron card. It's the very first card in that year's set. While his stats that season might not jump off the page, he hit .268 with 20 home runs and 69 RBIs. The significance of that year goes far beyond the box score. This was a moment that reshaped not just baseball, but American culture as a whole. And from that moment in history, I've got a couple of pieces I want to show you. First, here's a Jet magazine cover from 1974 featuring Hank Aaron. If you take a closer look, you can actually see Babe Ruth's image faintly in the background. Almost like history watching as Hank redefined it. And this, from my collection, is a Sport magazine from 1974. celebrating Hammerin' Hank's 715th home run. It's not just a magazine cover, it's a time capsule from a season that meant everything. Number 4, Rod Carew, 1977. 388. Let that number sink in for a second. In 1977, Rod Carew came within a whisper of baseball immortality, flirting with the legendary 400 mark. That season, he was more than the American League MVP. He was an artist at the plate. Here he is on his 1977 Topps card. Interestingly, not at bat, but in an action shot fielding. Still, it's fitting in a way because Carew did everything with grace and precision. He wasn't loud, but his game spoke volumes. A 7-time batting champ, and in 77, he had the best season of his career with 239 hits, 16 home runs, which is a personal high, and for the only time in his career, he drove in 100 RBIs. And he did it all with a swing that looked like poetry in motion. Carew, he just didn't hit. He painted with a bat. In 1977, he was baseball's Da Vinci. For my personal collection, here is the July 18th issue of Sports Illustrated. Carew's on the cover, standing alongside arguably the greatest hitter who ever lived, Ted Williams. 2 legends, 1 photo. And here's an October 1977 issue of Sport Magazine featuring Carew mid-swing, rocking that iconic tricolor Twins helmet, which I personally think is one of the best looks in baseball history. Number 3, Mark the Bird Fidrych, 1976. This one isn't about stats, it's about magic. In 1976, Mark Fidrych wasn't just pitching, he was performing. He talked to the ball, groomed the mound with his bare hands, and turned every start into a show. With his wild curls, big smile, and genuine joy for the game, he made it impossible not to watch. Now, America was properly introduced to the Bird on June 28, 1976, when he threw a complete game against the Yankees on national television, Monday Night Baseball. That one game turned him into an overnight sensation, and it wasn't just hype. He earned a starting spot in the All-Star game and was named American League Rookie of the Year. But like a shooting star, his time at the top was brief. Injuries began to take their toll as early as spring in 1977, and he was never quite the same. Still, for baseball fans, especially those who were there in 76, the Bird was unforgettable. That season still feels like a dream. Now, while Fidrych didn't have a Topps card in 76, here's his 1977 O-Pee-Chee rookie from my collection. A piece of cardboard that holds a whole lot of nostalgia. And check this out, the June 6, 1977 issue of Sports Illustrated, featuring Fidrych and another famous bird. Such a classic cover. And finally, here's a really fun piece I found online. A 1976 pennant with a picture of the Bird that perfectly captures the joy and electricity he brought to the game. Mark Fidrych wasn't just a player, he was a moment. And what a moment it was. Number 2, Reggie Jackson, 1977. October 18th, 1977. 3 swings, 3 home runs, off 3 different pitchers. In the biggest spotlight baseball has to offer, Reggie Jackson didn't just rise to the occasion, he owned it. That night, under the bright lights of Yankee Stadium, he didn't just play, he performed. And in doing so, he became a legend. Here's Mr. October at his 1977 Topps and Topps Burger King cards. Now his regular season that year was very solid, 32 home runs, 110 RBIs, but it wasn't historic. But the postseason, that was something else entirely. Iconic doesn't even begin to describe it. To this day, Yankee fans and baseball fans talk about that night like it happened last week. And that's the kind of impact that Reggie had. But his arrival in New York wasn't exactly smooth. When he joined the Yankees, he brought talent and tension. Take a look at this June 1977 issue of Sport Magazine. It features the now infamous interview where Reggie famously said, "I'm the straw that stirs the drink," and he threw some serious shade at team captain Thurman Munson. That quote lit up New York media and set the tone for a chaotic but unforgettable season. This is honestly one of the favorite pieces I have in my collection. And while I don't have it yet, the May 2nd, 1977 Sports Illustrated with Reggie's iconic swing frozen on the cover is high on my want list. That image captures everything about who he was. Dramatic, confident, larger than life. Reggie Jackson was the perfect storm. Part slugger, part showman, part spark plug. And in 1977, he embodied the chaos, the controversy, and ultimately the glory of a Yankee team that fought its way to a championship. And the number one player on my list is Vida Blue, 1971. At just 21 years old, he was nearly unhittable. Vida Blue, even the name sounded cool. A left-handed flamethrower with swagger, style, and stuff that baffled hitters. In 1971, he went 24-8 with a jaw-dropping 1.82 ERA, added 301 strikeouts, and took home both the MVP and Cy Young awards. He wasn't just dominating the league, he was capturing the imagination of the whole country. His games felt electric. He wasn't just a pitcher, he was an event. Sure, other players may have had longer or more decorated careers, but in 1971, nobody, and I mean nobody, was more iconic than Vida Blue. And this 71 Topps card is a perfect representation of that. An image burned into the memory of collectors from my generation. For many of us, just seeing that card showcases the history that Vida had in that impressive 71 season. He was everywhere. Newspapers, magazines, talk shows. He was the face of baseball for a moment in time. And not just in sports media. He was on the cover of Time magazine, featured in a bold, artistic portrait with the headline, "New Zip in the Old Game." Now for my collection, I've also got this 1972 Baseball Illustrated, just one of many magazines from that era that celebrated the phenomenon that was Vida Blue. Now while his career didn't end in Cooperstown, his place in baseball history is secure. Because Vida, he wasn't just a great pitcher, he was a 70s icon. A moment in the game when everything felt fresh, fast, and full of flair. I hope you enjoyed this top 10. And just remember, these aren't numbers on the back of a card. They're moments, they're feelings. They're why I collect. Not just Hall of Famers, but players who meant something in their time. Cards that tell stories, that capture lightning in a bottle, that remind us why baseball isn't just a game, it's a memory machine. This is my list. What's yours? Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll talk again soon.